the RPG-16 began to appear in service with Russian occupant units. This grenade launcher was adopted in the 1970s and was mainly used by paratroopers and special forces. While having good accuracy, it quickly ceased to meet modern requirements. In particular, it had poor armor penetration and very quickly became inferior to RPG-7. As a result, the grenade launcher was written off as not meeting modern requirements. However, the war in Ukraine seems to have depleted Russian forces' resources and reserves to such an extent that the long-forgotten RPG-16 began to be retrieved from the depots. Separately, the grenade launcher is quite good against firing points, but completely useless against modern tanks, especially if we are talking about the prospect of the Leopard 2 appearing in the combat zone. It's like a mosquito bite to an elephant. It is certainly better than nothing, but it is interesting to observe the gradual degradation of the Russian army. Every week the AFU, although slowly, gets more and more new weapons. Rheinmetall has even passed some experimental wonder waffle, and every week the occupants get more and more old and worn-out junk from Mammoth balls. That is, the trend is positive. Regarding the destruction of the Russian frontline bomber Su-34 a few days ago near Yenakievo, I would like to remind you that temporarily occupied Yenakievo is more than 25 kilometers away from the front line. That is to say, the destruction of this aircraft was carried out through the air defense system. No mobile sabotage and reconnaissance group armed with a man-portable air defense system could have penetrated so deeply behind enemy lines. For its part, Russian aviation had been using the safe rear for strikes on AFU positions with air-to-surface missiles with a range of up to 30 kilometers. However, it seems that now the rear area up to 30 kilometers is no longer safe for Russian aviation, and this strongly reminds me of the appearance of M142 HIMARS in the armed forces of Ukraine. After all, these MLRSs forced the occupants to adapt to a kill radius of up to 80 kilometers, which had a negative impact on their command and control system. Now the Russians are trying to compensate for the lack of ground weapons, in particular artillery, at the expense of aviation. If the destruction of the Su-34 in the area of Yenakievo is not an isolated case but a harbinger of the systemic capabilities of the armed forces of Ukraine, then it can be considered another negative for the Russian forces. This, in turn, will lead to another chain of restrictions on capabilities in offense and defense, as the use of aviation outside of a 30-kilometer zone will have a significantly lesser effect due to the limited range of available weapons and their scarcity. In the last video I showed kilometer-long lines of defense on the Crimean coast, which the enemy is hurriedly building. And now the AFU General Staff reports that in the political and economic center of Crimea, the city of Simferopol, the occupation authorities have begun to form volunteer brigades to assist the police, because they fear guerrilla actions. Considering that the police are already in short supply all over Russia, because many were sent to the front lines, and there they were taken care of by the Ukrainian armed forces soldiers. Now is the time to start waking up and organizing protest movements. It would only take a desire.